Hello everyone, my name's Stephen and I'm coming to you today in partnership with our friends at the Strand Art Centre in East Belfast. And we at the Strand, we're just thinking that at the moment where no one's allowed any visitors and we're not allowed to go out anywhere in these very strange times, that it might be nice to put together a little video of poems and songs just to raise a smile, bit of a distraction for a while and a bit of entertainment. So I'm coming to you today from my living room because obviously I'm not allowed to leave the house either. So sure, we'll see how it goes. I've got together a little folder of poems and songs, and then the plan is that if they all go to plan, then I'm going to finish with this. Now, this is the trumpet that I learned to play whenever I was at school. And I'm going to plan to finish off by playing Mud, Mud, Glorious Mud on this trumpet. And we'll all get to see whether I can still remember how to play the trumpet at that stage. So, fingers crossed for that. Okay, so I've also got my cup of tea with me here as well. Hope you've all got your tea with you. So, without further ado, let's go. So, our first poem today is by Edward Lear. Now, Edward Lear obviously was a great fan of nonsense poems, but this is probably his most famous poem of all, and it's called The Owl and the Pussycat. The owl and the pussycat went to sea in a beautiful pea-green boat. They took some honey and plenty of money wrapped up in a £5 note. The owl looked up to the stars above and sang to a small guitar. Oh, lovely pussy, oh pussy my love, what a beautiful pussy you are. You are, you are, what a beautiful pussy you are. Pussy said to the owl, you elegant fowl, how charmingly sweet you sing. Oh, let us be married, too long we have tarried, but what shall we do for a ring? They sailed away for a year and a day to the land where the bong tree grows. And there in a wood a piggy wig stood, with a ring at the end of his nose, his nose, his nose, with a ring at the end of his nose. Dear pig, are you willing to sell for 1 shilling your ring? Said the piggy. I will. So they took it away and were married next day by the turkey who lives on the hill. They dined on mince and slices of quince, which they ate with a runcible spoon. And hand in hand, on the edge of the sand, they danced by the light of the moon. The moon, the moon. They danced by the light of the moon. So that's The Owl and the Pussycat by Edward Lear. Now the next poem is by Spike Milligan. Now Spike Milligan obviously became famous originally as part of The Goon Show with Peter Sellers and Harry Seacombe and Michael Bentine sometimes. But also a great novelist and funny poet and lyricist as well. And this is called Jumbo Jet by Spike Milligan. I saw a little elephant standing in my garden. I said, you don't belong in here. He said, I beg your pardon. I said, this place is England. What are you doing here? He said, oh, then I must be lost. And then, oh dear, I should be back in Africa on Serengeti's plain. Pray, where is the nearest station where I can catch a train? He caught the bus to Finchley and then to Mincing Lane and over the embankment where he got lost again. The police, they put him in a cell, but it was far too small. So they tied him to a lamppost and he slept against the wall. But as the policeman lay sleeping by the twinkling light of dawn, the lamppost and the wall were there, but the elephant was gone. So, if you see an elephant in a jumbo jet, you can be sure that Africa is the place he's trying to get. So we'll have a little bit more from Spike Milligan later on. Now we have the first of our songs, and this is a song by Flanders and Swann, who I know will be very popular with a lot of people, and it's called The GNU Song. And I'm going to do my best to sing it to you a cappella, unaccompanied, so let's see how that goes. The verses are just recited and the chorus is sung, so here we go. A year ago, last Thursday, I was strolling in the zoo when I met a man who thought he knew the lot. He was laying down the law about the habits of baboons and the number of quills a porcupine has got. So I asked him, "What's that creature there?" And he answered, "Oh, it's a helk." I might have gone on thinking that was true if the animal in question hadn't put that chap to shame and remarked, "I ain't a helk, I'm a GNU. I'm a GNU. I'm a GNU, the nicest work of nature in the zoo. I'm a GNU. How do you do? You really ought to know wahoo's wahoo. I'm a GNU, spelt GNU. I'm not a camel or a kangaroo. So let me introduce, I'm neither man nor moose. GNU, 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 I'm a GNU. I had taken furnished lodgings down at Rustington-on-Sea, whence I travelled on to Ashton-under-Lyne, it was actually. And the second night I stayed there, I was wakened from a dream that I'll tell you all about some other time. Among the hunting trophies on the wall above my head, stuffed and mounted, was a face I thought I knew. A bison? No, it's not a bison. An okapi? Unlikely, really. A hearty beast? When I thought I heard a voice, I'm a GNU. I'm a GNU. Another GNU. I wish I could gnash my teeth at you. I'm a GNU. How do you do? You really ought to know wahoo's wahoo. Yes, I'm a GNU, spelt GNU. Call me bison or a okapi and I'll sue. Nor am I the least like that dreadful hearty beast. A GNU, 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 GNU. I'm a GNU. There we are, inflicting my singing voice on you there. Flanders and Swann, the GNU Song. Now this next one is by a poet who I've loved since I was a little boy, and she's always on the radio, and this is probably her most famous poem of all. It's written by Ayres, and it's called I Wish I'd Looked After Me Teeth. Now I'm not going to do Ayres' voice because it's a lovely voice and I'm not even going to try and imitate it. So here we go. I wish I'd looked after me teeth. Oh, I wish I'd looked after me teeth and spotted the dangers beneath all the toffees I chewed and the sweet sticky food. Oh, I wish I'd looked after me teeth. I wish I'd been that much more willing when I had more tooth there than filling, to give up gobstoppers for respect for me choppers and to buy something else with me shilling. When I think of the lollies I licked and the licorice all sorts I picked, sherbet dabs big and little, all that hard peanut brittle, my conscience gets horribly pricked. My mother, she told me no end, if you got a tooth, you'd got a friend. I was young then and careless, my toothbrush was hairless, I never had much time to spend. Oh, I showed them the toothpaste all right, I flashed it about late at night, but up and down brushing and poking and fussing didn't seem worth the time. I could bite. If I'd known I was paving the way to cavities, caps and decay, the murder of fillings, injections and drillings, I'd have thrown all me sherbet away. So I lie in the old dentist's chair and I gaze up his nose in despair, and his drill it do whine in these molars of mine, To amalgam, he'll say, for in there. How I laughed at my mother's false teeth as they foamed in the waters beneath. But now comes the reckoning. It's me they are beckoning. Oh, I wish I'd looked after me teeth. Little bit of Pam Ayres there. There'll be another Pam Ayres along a bit later on. Here's another poem, one by Ogden Nash. Again, a bit like Edward Lear, someone who was very fond of nonsense poems and wordplay. And this is one called To My Valentine. More than a catbird hates a cat, or a criminal hates a clue, or the Axis hates the United States, that's how much I love you. I love you more than a duck can swim, and more than a grapefruit squirts. I love you more than a gin rummy is a bore, and more than a toothache hurts. As a shipwrecked sailor hates the sea, or a juggler hates a shove, as a hostess detests unexpected guests, that's how much you I love. I love you more than a wasp can sting and more than the subway jerks. I love you as much as a beggar needs a crutch and more than a hangnail irks. I swear to you by the stars above and below, if such there be, as the high court loathes perjurious oaths, that's how you're loved by me. So we'll have some more poems a bit later on which are all about love and relationships and things like that and how we put up with each other. So obviously at the minute we're all locked indoors and we're all trying to get on with each other when we're seeing probably a lot more of each other than we would do normally. So yes, some poets seemed good to pick some poems that were about how we get on with each other and how we relate to each other. Here's just a nice big silly one. This is another one by Spike Milligan called In the Land of the Bumbley Boo. In the land of the Bumbley Boo, the people are red, white and blue. They never blow noses or even wear clothes. What a sensible thing to do. In the land of the Bumbley Boo, you can buy lemon pie at the zoo. They give away foxes in little pink boxes and bottles of dandelion stew. In the land of the Bumbley Boo, you never see a gnu, but thousands of cats wearing trousers and hats made of pumpkins and pelican glue. Oh, the Bumbley Boo, that's the place for me and you. So hurry, let's run, the train leaves at 1 for the land of the Bumbley Boo, the wonderful Bumbley Boo, boo, boo. The wonderful Bumbley Boo. A very serious man, Spike Milligan. Now, we have something a little bit different. I'm sure you'll all be very familiar with Roald Dahl. Roald Dahl, again, was one of my favourite writers whenever I was growing up, and I still love his stories. And this particular piece, which I'm going to read you now, is from his book Revolting Rhymes. And in Revolting Rhymes, Roald Dahl took a series of famous nursery rhymes and he gave them a bit of a Roald Dahl twist, turned them on his head a little bit. So this is Little Red Riding Hood and the Wolf by Roald Dahl. As soon as Wolf began to feel that he would like a decent meal, he went and knocked on Grandma's door. When Grandma opened it, she saw the sharp white teeth, the horrid grin, and Wolfie said, "May I come in?" Poor Grandmama was terrified. "He's gonna eat me up," she cried. And she was absolutely right. He ate her up in one big bite. But Grandmama was small and tough, and Wolfie wailed, "That's not enough. I haven't yet begun to feel that I have had a decent meal." He ran around the kitchen yelping, "I've got to have a second helping." Then added with a frightful leer, "I'm therefore going to wait right here till little Miss Red Riding Hood comes home from walking in the wood." He quickly put on Grandma's clothes. Of course, he hadn't eaten those. He dressed himself in coat and hat. He put on shoes, and after that, he even brushed and curled his hair and sat himself in Grandma's chair. In came the little girl in red. She stopped, she stared, and then she said, "What great big ears you have, Grandma." "All the better to hear you with," the wolf replied. "What big eyes you have, Grandma," said Little Red Riding Hood. "All the better to see you with," the wolf replied. He sat there watching her and smiled. He thought, "I'm going to eat this child. Compared with her old grandmama, she's going to taste like caviar." Then Little Red Riding Hood said, "But Grandma, what a lovely great big furry coat you have on." "That's wrong," cried the wolf. "Have you forgot to tell me what big teeth I've got?" "Ah, well, no matter what you say, I'm going to eat you anyway." The small girl smiles. One eyelid flickers. She whips a pistol from her knickers. She aims it at the creature's head and bang, bang, bang! She shoots him dead. A few weeks later in the wood, I came across Miss Riding Hood, but what a change. No cloak of red, no silly hood upon her head. She said, "Hello, and do please note my lovely furry wolfskin coat." And the moral of that story is that little girls aren't quite as gullible as they used to be, indeed. So, this is another Ogden Nash poem, and it is a poem that he wrote for women and particularly wives everywhere. So it is a poem about husbands and about men in general. So this is a poem called "What Almost Every Woman Knows Sooner or Later" by Ogden Nash. Husbands are things that wives have to get used to putting up with, and with whom they breakfast with and sup with. They interfere with the discipline of nurseries and forget anniversaries, and when they have been particularly remiss, they think they can cure everything with a great big kiss. And when you tell them about something awful they have done, they just look unbearably patient and smile a superior smile and think, "Oh, she'll get over it after a while." And they always drink cocktails faster than they can assimilate them. And if you look in their direction, they act as if they were martyrs that you were trying to sacrifice or immolate them. And when it's a question of walking 5 miles to play golf, they are very energetic. But if it's doing anything useful around the house, they are very lethargic. And they tell you that women are unreasonable and don't do anything about logic. And they never want to get up or go to bed at the same time as you do. And when you perform some simple common or garden rite, like putting cold cream on your face or applying a touch of lipstick, they seem to think you're up to some kind of black magic, like a priestess of voodoo. And they are brave and calm and cool and collected about the ailments of the person they have promised to honour and cherish. But the minute they get a sniffle or a stomachache of their own, why, you'd think they were about to perish. And when you are alone with them, they ignore all the minor courtesies, and as for airs and graces, they utterly lack them. But when there are a lot of people around, they hand you so many chairs and ashtrays and sandwiches and butter you with such bowings and scrapings that you want to smack them. Husbands are indeed an irritating form of life. And yet, through some quirk of providence, most of them are really very deeply ensconced in the affection of their wife. So we have 2 more poems, and then we get to Flanders and Swann, the Hippopotamus, which I'm going to sing again. Brace yourselves. But also, if that goes well, I'm going to finish with the trumpet. So let's hope that goes well. So the penultimate poem is called "Yes, I'll Marry You," and it's another one by Ayres. Yes, I'll marry you, my dear, and here's the reason why. So I can push you out of bed when the baby starts to cry, And if we hear a knocking and it's creepy and it's late, I hand you the torch, you see, and you investigate. Yes, I'll marry you, my dear. You may not apprehend it, but when the tumble dryer goes, it's you that has to mend it. You have to face the neighbour should our Labrador attack him, and if a drunkard fondles me, it's you that has to whack him. Yes, I'll marry you. You're virile and you're lean. My house is like a pigsty, you can help to keep it clean. That sexy little dinner which you served by candlelight, yeah, I do chipolatas, so you can cook it every night. It's you who has to work the drill and put up the curtain track, and when I've got PMT, it's you who gets the flack. I do see great advantages, but none of them for you. And so, before you see the light, I do. So our final poem is a last one by Ogden Nash, and it's called More About People. And I thought this was an interesting one at the minute because so many people are having to either not work or work from home, and this poem is about work and how some people love to work and how some people don't. So More About People by Ogden Nash. When people aren't asking questions, they are making suggestions. And when they're not doing one of those, they're either looking over your shoulder or stepping on your toes. And then, as if that weren't enough to annoy you, they employ you. Anybody at leisure incurs everybody's displeasure. It seems to be very irking to people at work to see other people not working. So they tell you that work is wonderful medicine. Just look at Firestone and Ford and Edison, and they lecture you till they're out of breath or something, and then if you don't succumb, they starve you to death or something. All of which results in a nasty quirk, that if you don't want to work, you have to work to earn enough extra money so that you won't have to work. And finally, we have another Flanders and Swann, and this is the Hippopotamus. Most people know this by more from its chorus, mud, mud, glorious mud. So Flanders and Swann's the Hippopotamus. Thank you so much for joining me for this little collection, this little video. As I said, I'm going to do this here, and all being well, bit of trumpet at the end. I feel I built it up a bit too much now, this trumpet, you know, who knows how it's going to go, we shall see. The Hippopotamus. A bold hippopotamus was standing one day on the banks of the cool Shalimar. He gazed at the bottom as it peacefully lay by the light of the evening star. Away on a hilltop sat combing her hair was a fair hippopotami maid. The hippopotamus was no ignoramus and sang her this sweet serenade. Mud, mud, glorious mud, nothing quite like it for cooling the blood. So follow me, follow, down to the hollow, and there let us wallow in glorious mud. The fair hippopotama he aimed to entice from her seat on that hilltop above. As she hadn't got a ma to give her advice, came tiptoeing down to her love. Like thunder the forest re-echoed the sound of the song that they sang when they met. His innamorata adjusted her garter and lifted her voice in duet. Mud, mud, glorious mud, nothing quite like it for cooling the blood. So follow me, follow, down to the hollow, and there let us wallow in glorious mud. The bold hippopotami began to convene on the banks of the river so wide. I wonder now what am I to say of the scene that ensued by the Shalimar side. They dived all at once with an ear-splitting splosh, then rose to the surface again. A regular army of hippopotami, all singing this haunting refrain. Mud, mud, glorious mud, nothing quite like it for cooling the blood. So follow me, follow, down to the hollow, and there let us wallow in glorious mud. There we are now. Now, here goes. There we are now. Considering I haven't played that in many years, I thought I would dust off the trumpet for you all today. What a treat. I can hear you echo across East Belfast. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me today. And thank you very much to the Strand Arts Centre for putting this all together and for sending it out so that people can see it. My name's Stephen, and it has been lovely to spend some time with you. Thank you very much, and goodbye.